Well, thanks a lot to the organisers for having us. I've been following along the sessions as they go, and this has been a great meeting so far. And it'll be very nice to share a bit of info about our journals and open access publishing with you. So yeah, essentially I'm going to briefly talk about our new open access journal, Digital Discovery, but also put that in the context of publishing open access and with open data at the RC more generally. And I'm hoping not to use up the full slot here because I'm very interested in the audience's thoughts on what science publishers can be doing about open science and open access to assist them. So just to introduce the RSC, we're a non-profit scholarly society. We have a charter around promoting the chemical sciences in various ways, some of which you can see here. One of these commitments is to disseminating scientific knowledge, which we achieve through scientific publishing, of course. That's also a revenue source for other activities, some of which you can see here, including advocating for the chemical sciences, providing various kinds of resources like information or financial support to events such as this. My role is centered on journals, but we also publish books, a magazine, Chemistry World, which you may be familiar with, and various data products, databases of various kinds. As we're in the knowledge business, we obviously have a lot of interest in analysing how the information we distribute is used and how it can also be used by ourselves to extract more value from it. My colleague Colin Batchelor is in the audience, a senior data scientist at the RSC, and if you haven't yet, please do have a chat with him about the RSC's use of data in meeting its own goals. So what about helping researchers exploit existing knowledge? So open access is an important new model in journals publishing, I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's about making scientific information freely available, in particular, eliminating charges to read articles, usually by applying the costs to the author rather than to the reader. So that has advantages. Principally in terms of equity for readers and visibility of the research for authors. Free doesn't just mean free of charge here, because these articles are then published under an open access license. They also grant broad reuse rights, which make the material more flexible, something to keep in mind in the context of open data. But open access comes with a lot of challenges, a lot of questions. There's a strong drive for it, particularly for publicly funded research. So naturally, there's a lot of growth in publications offering this, but its adoption varies a lot globally. There are very different regional environments for open access. Funding bodies can require open access, but what qualifies as open access varies. You may have heard of Plan S, which has very specific ideas about what should constitute open access, and there are different variations in various environments. Around all of this, charges to publish articles, which I mentioned earlier, to publish open access, can act as barriers to authors. There's a very nice recent study showing that authors in the Global South are underrepresented in open access publications versus in paywalled publications, essentially because that cost burden is being put onto the author. So there's various solutions to this. We're still trying to figure out the best approaches for all parties. Tools like transformative agreements, APC waivers, and so on. Generally speaking, our policy as an organization is we want to support open access's growth while ensuring it's sustainable, that journals can continue publishing, that authors can continue publishing in journals, and that readers can continue reading that content. And we want to shape our open access offerings in ways that meet the community's wants and needs, which is part of the reason why we're at events like this, is to try and gauge what those wants and needs are. So I can say that all of our journals offer gold open access publication. Most of our recent launches are fully gold open access, where every article has an article processing charge in principle attached to it, but they're all free to read. We pay the publishing costs at first for our newly launched journals and permanently for Chemical Science, which is our flagship journal. All of our traditional pay-to-read journals are now hybrid journals with gold open access publication as an option for any particular manuscript. And even for those articles, for paywalled articles, we support green open access publication, where the accepted paper, but not the version we've typeset, can be deposited after 12 months on a public repository. So into this open access environment, we're launching Digital Discovery, which is the journal that's sponsoring the event. So this is a fully gold open access journal. It has a broad remit on data-driven scientific discovery with a focus on open data. Now, in terms of scope, our editor-in-chief, Alana Spuro-Guzik, has written a great introductory editorial, which you can find at this URL in our first issue, which outlines the scope and goals of the journal and how it fits into the open data, data science, machine learning automation context. But to summarize, we're interested in new ways of using data science, machine learning, automation, and allied technologies to accelerate scientific discovery. I'll put this link up at the end, by the way, if anyone wants to copy it down. This means everything from high throughput and automated experimental work to machine learning based chemical predictions. There's of course an emphasis on chemistry throughout this across that scope. Now we have an editorial board here, which reflects this topic variation. Their expertise varies from robotics to materials science, biology, and more. We've written up some little biographies about them at blogs.rsc.org/dd, where you'll also find other news about the journal. I'll leave this up for a second just to let you have a quick look at them. So in addition to open access to manuscripts, excuse me, open data is an area of active interest for the RSC. We draw on and contribute to standards for data sharing. Usable open data is important to the kind of work digital discovery advances, and it's also a theme that's been very clear in the talks this week. It's not sufficient just to have a lot of information out there in electronic supplementary information, PDFs, in papers, and so on. You really want it to be data that can be accessed and used by people, and preferably in machine readable ways, excuse me. Therefore, the RSC encourages, and digital discovery in fact requires, that manuscripts include a statement explaining where readers can find the underlying data beyond the manuscript and its ASI. We encourage authors to think about this in terms of the so-called FAIR principles. That's findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reuse of the data. It should be deposited somewhere that meets the RSC's fairly broad data requirements, as outlined in this slide. So a recognized repository for the subject, and we have a list of suggestions for these on our author and reviewer hub, rsc.li/hub. You can put it on your institutional repository or in a more general repository. And again, we have some suggestions. For example, a GitHub is considered a suitable repository for code in this context. And again, I'll put this link up at the end. For digital discovery specifically, the underlying data and codes is assessed during peer review by a reviewer who's specially assigned to that task. In fact, we're keen to hear from anyone with an interest in doing this kind of assessment and review, especially early career researchers and postdocs who would benefit from the review experience. We recently held a prize draw to give away an exclusive digital discovery mug to one of our first data reviewers. Very exclusive, it's currently the only one in existence. Or it will be once we finish making it up. And you can find some more information on this blog post, blogs.rsc.org/dd/data-reviewer, with some information on this data reviewer process and how to sign up for that. Continuing on the subject of openness, digital discovery offers a novel transparent peer review option. Authors can opt in or out of transparent peer review up to submission of the last version of the paper, and if selected, the reports and the author's responses are published alongside the paper in text form. Now, I should stress this is transparent peer review. It's not fully open peer review. The review reports are still anonymous by default, although reviewers are welcome to sign their reports and waive their anonymity if they prefer. As an editor, I can say that over the years, I've seen a lot of really insightful and informative discussions between authors and reviewers over the years. Some papers have been tremendously improved by this process. And I'm hopeful that this will be adopted by authors so that everyone gets the benefit of the insights offered by reviewers. So to sum up for digital discovery, that's a gold open access journal, which is free to read, and we're paying all publication costs until the middle of 2024. So it's currently also free to publish in. We mandate open data in the articles we publish to support growth in open science. And we also offer transparent peer review to let our readers benefit from reviewers' insights. And again, this encompasses both computational and experimental work using digital technologies to accelerate scientific discovery. So just before I wrap up, let's talk briefly about preprints. We have a policy on prior publication that allows papers to be deposited on preprint servers amongst various other sources, and then still be submitted to publication, provided the repositories meet some criteria. They're free to deposit in and free to access. Commercial repositories are fine in this sense. We actively support ChemArchive, which is supported by several other chemical societies as well, of course, with a quick submission route to digital discovery and our other journals. It's a nice repository I'd recommend having a look into. In the digital age, you might rightly ask why you should submit your paper for publication instead of just leaving as a preprint, presenting at conferences, discussing it, doing this very next generation peer review involving online discussion and things like this. I hope you won't think it's just self-interest if I say that peer-reviewed publication has its advantages. Not just the peer review process itself, which offers benefits to authors, readers, and reviewers, as outlined in this nice slide here, but also in the support that journals offer authors for publication in issues like typesetting, editing, and raising the visibility of their work, which I'll be happy to discuss with anyone who's interested. Thank you for your attention. As mentioned, if you'd like to talk to someone from the RSC about how we take advantage of data, please do talk to Colin. You can find those links here that I mentioned before, also our Twitter account at digital_RSC. If you want to email me to discuss submitting a manuscript or with any questions about the journal, that's digitaldiscovery-rsc@rsc.org. You can read the first issue of the journal via the journal information page at rsc.li/digitaldiscovery. The link in the middle here is for information on becoming a data reviewer. The bottom one is the DOI for our editor-in-chief's editorial. And I'd just like to mention, we're also going to be holding some webinars towards the end of the month, if all goes well, which will, I hope, give a nice clear picture of some of the kind of work we've been publishing in digital discovery. It includes both our authors and our editorial board members. Thank you for your time, and I'll be quite happy to answer any questions you might have.